Hey, thanks for joining us here on Budgeting with Alex. My name's Alex and I'm here to help you take control of your finances. Today, we're going to continue in our series at looking how you can put a budget together that works for you. And we're going to start that process by looking at where your money is actually going. We're going to do that by creating a spending journal. No, not that kind of journal. We're going to look at where your money has gone over a certain period of time. We're going to look at everything from coffees to utility bills. Everything you spend, you're going to record it so we have a record of where it's all gone. Now be careful, because we're about to enter the danger zone. That's where you actually find out exactly how much money you spent on things that you didn't really care about anyway. When I talk to people about their budgets, I normally have 3 different types of budgets that I go through with them. Depending on which personality is best for them, that's the one we pick. Now, each one of them is a variation on the envelope method. For the sake of this exercise, I'm going to go with the middle budget, that middle of the road thing that I call the minimalist budget. We're going to take some time to look at your expenses and then clump them together in purchase types. Once we get that together, we're going to clump them down even further into spending categories. Once we work that out, we're going to create your budget based on those spending categories. From there, we'll automate the process and your budget will almost run itself. So to start, we need to work out where your money is going. Thus, a spending journal. How do I create a spending journal, I hear you ask? I'm so glad you asked. You could just carry around a small notebook everywhere you go, or maybe have an app on your phone. And every time you spend money, you just note down the time, what it is that you spent it on, and how much you spent. Again, you can do that in a notebook, or you can do that in an app on your phone. There are heaps of those kinds of apps in the app stores. If you're going to do that, I would suggest you do a spending journal for only about 4 weeks. Look, the truth is that the more data, the better. If you can go for 3 months, that's awesome. But if you do it for anything more than 4 weeks, you'll probably lose motivation pretty quickly. And I would much rather have less data that's very accurate than the other way around. The other thing you have to remember, if you're going to go that way, is that you're also going to have to include things like direct debits out of your account, bills that you've paid out of your account, that kind of stuff as well. You want to include that on your spending journal too. Now, like I said, you could do that in just a traditional notebook or on an app, or I have a shortcut for you. If you're one of the millions of people that do not buy stuff with cash, you use your credit card or your debit card or your bank card, you use something like that, then very kindly, and maybe a little bit creepily, the bank has been keeping a record of your spending just for this occasion. Okay, maybe not just for this occasion, but you can use it to your advantage because they have every transaction of everything that you have bought ever over the last whatever period of time. Yeah, that's the creepy part. If this is you, then you can simply download the transaction list from your bank account over the last 3 months, and you basically have your spending journal there. Of course, you will have to remember you need to download the transaction list from every card that you use. So if you have a credit card and a bank card, or a debit card and a bank card, a savings card, then you actually want to get all of the transactions from both of those cards. Not only that, but if you did any withdrawals of cash, then you're going to want to try and remember, and you'll see that in the transaction list, but you're going to want to try and remember, what exactly did I withdraw that cash for? The idea here is that you will capture the spending over the last 3 months, and you don't want to miss any of your spending out at all. Then, if you download those transactions onto an Excel spreadsheet, you basically just have to go through and actually list next to it what it is that you spent those particular purchases on. Now, if you don't have an Excel spreadsheet or you don't have a computer, I'm not sure exactly how you got transaction list, but let's say that you don't have an Excel spreadsheet, then you can either go online, Google Sheets. It's an online, effectively Excel spreadsheet that can do pretty much exactly the same thing. Or you could simply print the transaction list out and you'll be able to write next to each of those items what it is that you purchased. The only thing about that is you'll have to be extra careful when you add up your purchases, because you don't have a spreadsheet doing it for you. You want to make sure you're good on your calculator. You don't have fat fingers that actually hit 3 buttons at once. So you want to be a little bit careful about that. So now you have a list of every single thing that you spent money on over the last 3 months. It's a bit disturbing, isn't it? But what you want to do with that is go through that list, and next to it, you just want to write out, I bought coffee here. I was eating out here. I went to a restaurant here. I was at the cinemas here. And just write down what it is that you spent each of those particular purchases on. We're going to call that column purchase categories. Now you want to be as specific and detailed as you can. So you actually want to break out, I went out for coffee, as opposed to I was out to lunch. A bit later on, we're going to kind of pull those things together, but right now you want to keep as much detail as possible. If you put money into savings, then you write down savings. But if it was savings for a holiday specifically, then write down holiday savings. Again, you want to differentiate between general savings, holiday savings, house deposit savings, different purchases. Be as specific as you possibly can, because the more data, the better for you as we get a little bit further down the process. Now here we come with a warning, because this can be a long process. It's the last 3 months of your spending life, so it can take a significant amount of time. But be patient, because if you stick at it, it will be well worth the investment of time that you have put into it. The other thing to note is that it's particularly difficult when you come up with a line item that says something like Emeron Enterprises. What is that? Because oftentimes stores won't have their name, like Sushi Sushi. Whatever the name of the company is that set up Sushi Sushi is what it is that will be on your transaction list. And so it will take a little bit of sleuthing to work out, okay, so this thing here actually was food. You might need to Google it, you might need to look at your receipts, whatever it is that you can do, just to try and think of and work out exactly what it is that you spent things on. Sometimes that can be a bit tricky. That's part of the reason it's such a long exercise sometimes. The other problem is when you have something like Kmart. Well, you know, you went into Kmart 4 months ago and you spent $40. Was it on clothes? Was it on Christmas decorations? Was it on chocolate? You were doing a bender on chocolate. Again, sometimes that can be a little bit tricky. That's why I suggest always keeping your receipts and just sticking them in a file, because you never know when you need them. But again, do your best to label every single one of those transactions as detailed as you possibly can. The idea is that the more accurate your data, the better your data, and the less contingency you will have to leave. A budget is a living document. As time goes on, you will refine it and you will get better at it, especially if you do things like keeping your receipts, because you have a better idea of what it is that you're actually spending. But at least at the start off, let's start by doing the best we can with the transactions that we do have. Now, once you've done that, all you need to do if you're on an Excel spreadsheet is sort all of that data by purchase category. And it'll actually pull all of your coffees together, all of your restaurant eating outs together, all of your clothing together. It'll pull all of the different purchase categories together, and you just quickly add them up and put that number next to that purchase category. And you know how much you've spent in the last 3 months on each of those categories. This is the scary part.
Danger, Will Robinson. Danger. No, Will Robinson. Danger.
Now you can see exactly how much you spent on coffee. You can see how much you spent on clothes. You can see how much you spent on every single one of those purchase categories. And can I suggest to you, that is, at least at this point in time, the true representation of what your priorities have been up until this point. But it doesn't have to stay that way. You can change it. And that's what we're going to do with your budget. Next time we get together, we're going to look at how you can turn that spending journal into a budget. But over the next week, what I'd love you to do is have a look at your purchase categories and start to ask yourself the question, Is this truly a reflection of the kind of priorities that I want to have? Am I happy with where all of my money's gone in the last 3 months? When I look at where I've spent the bulk of my money, and in particular the discretionary money, not your bills and stuff, but your discretionary money, is that really the kind of priorities that I want for the rest of my life? Or are there priorities that aren't actually in my budget yet? Just something to think about before we meet again. Hey, if you found this useful, don't forget to hit that like button and maybe subscribe to it if you haven't yet. If you know someone who's struggling a little bit with their finances, then why don't you share this with them? I know they'll be grateful that you did. If there's a particular topic you'd like me to cover, hey, just drop that into the comments and we'll see if we can somehow include that in a future episode. And if you haven't done it yet, why not hit that subscribe button and ring that bell? It means you'll be notified the next time an episode drops. Always remember, budgeteers, if you don't tell your money where to go, you'll never be able to say where it went. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again soon.